I have a theory about the Muppets. Now, we all know Kermit the Frog, right? And not only do we know this beloved character, but the journey of Kermit becoming the star we all know and love today is very well documented. From his start on Sam and Friends, to presenting at the Academy Awards, and even becoming a contestant on The Masked Singer. And not to mention the countless movies, TV shows, and cameos. But there's one thing we don't know about Kermit the Frog, and it has to do with how he was made. Yes, we know that the eyes were ping pong balls, and many of the features were painted on. And instead of using fabric, Jim Henson used his mom's coat that he cut into pieces to make the first Kermit puppet. And any moms listening who would have been upset about losing their coat, look at what an investment this turned out to be.
Oh, don't you worry about it.
Now, this one design feature that we don't know the history about is also the only feature on Kermit that hasn't changed. Since Kermit was first introduced, his design has evolved over the years. They added a collar, they frogified the feet, and the modern Kermit is a much brighter green. But one design choice has always been the same, and that's Kermit's pupils. It is such an unusual design. The shape is literally out of this world, especially when compared to the rest of the Muppets from history. Now, the Muppets do have some variety when it comes to their eyes, the color, the irises, mechanisms, but they are all some variation of a round pupil. But look at the shape of Kermit's pupils. They are so unique. Now, I know what you might be thinking. Wasn't his eyes inspired by a real frog? Well, let me put on my Adam Savage hat and do a little myth busting. This was a theory that hit pop culture a few years ago through some viral blog posts.
That's a bald-faced lie! I will not stand around while you do dumb things like that!
So a lot of people now think that Kermit's design was inspired by a real frog. But this just isn't true. And that's because when Jim first made Kermit in 1955, Kermit wasn't even a frog yet. He was an abstract character. It wasn't until the 1960s that Kermit was officially made into a frog. That's part of why the character got that makeover that I mentioned earlier.
It's busted.
Totally busted.
So now we have that debunked, but there's one more crazy theory crawling around out there that doesn't have a leg to stand on. And that's because people think that this next theory has tires.
You are all weirdos.
It is no secret that Jim Henson loved cars. But some people think that he loved cars so much that it was the inspiration for the shape of Kermit's pupils. Now, I love crazy theories, but this is a little too far-fetched for even me.
What are you guys trying to do to us?
It's kind of impossible to see a car in this without adding a bunch of details to it. So with those theories aside, most people think the shape is completely original and only associated with Kermit. We're all accustomed to it now and we can't imagine him looking any other way. It's one of Kermit's identifying features that only he has. Aside from a few gags on the show, no real characters have it. Why wouldn't this technique be recycled same as other design aesthetics? Especially considering Kermit is one of the first characters Jim designed. So the question is, where did this shape come from? Well, I asked 4 of the biggest Muppet nerds I know, and if they don't know, nobody knows. First is host of It's Time to Meet the Muppets podcast, Fergie L. Philippe, the infamous Disney Dan from the Disney Dan YouTube channel, Cameron Garrity, who runs the Muppet history show called The Muppet Know, and lastly, the co-owner and editor-in-chief of Tough Pigs, Joe Hennes. Let's see what they had to say.
I really am unsure.
Oh, I got nothing.
You know what? That's a great question that I've always wondered myself.
So none of these Muppet experts know where the shape came from, but I have a theory. A Muppet theory. Sorry, Matt Pat. No, but really, hear me out. I have to admit, the shape of Kermit's eyes is not completely foreign to me. In fact, it's a little nostalgic. It gives me childhood vibes of walking around the toy aisle of a department store. Some toys were on shelves and others were hanging like this. All kinds of store products are displayed like this. Not just toys, but candy, tools, and even craft supplies all hang off these peg hooks. Now, most peg hooks are just a simple rod, and the packaging hangs off of it from a hole punch. And there are actually different types of peg hooks for different products, and each requires a different shape of hole punch in order to hang properly. Some look like this, others like this, and some even look like this. They even sell a lot of hand punches of these shapes that a lot of jewelry makers use for making their own craft show displays. And with each style, there are endless variations. However, there are some peg hooks that look like this. And this type of peg hook actually has a name, and it's called the butterfly peg hook. And the type of hole punch a product needs so it can be displayed on it looks strangely familiar.
Vaguely familiar.
Now, this might seem far-fetched to some people, that a design element of one of the most iconic characters in the world may have been inspired by garbage. That's right, the empty packaging that we tear apart and ultimately ends up in the trash.
I love trash.
When I was a kid, I remember that sometimes the toy packaging still had that little tab hanging off of it. It was always fun to pick off. And just look at that shape. It's too perfect. It's the right size, it's the right shape, and it might even have come off of the very same package of ping pong balls that Jim Henson used for the whites of Kermit's eyes. Now, he clearly didn't pluck 2 of these tabs off and glue them on his puppet.
Oh, hold on, there must be some mistake.
Like I mentioned at the beginning, we know the original pupils on Kermit were painted on, but there is one slight difference that this peg hole shape has, and that's that the actual Kermit pupils are not straight like this. They are slightly concave, but concaved in a certain way, almost as if the packaging was wrapped around the eye to mask off the sides, or to trace a tab that fell off. As an artist, I can tell you, it's hard to make anything perfectly symmetrical by hand. It would make perfect sense for him to trace the shape of the packaging to make sure both pupils were exactly the same size before he painted them on. Perhaps he was just looking around his craft materials and was inspired by the unusual shape and just painted it on.
Why are you telling me all this?
Now, we don't have any direct evidence that this theory is true, but I don't think it's that far-fetched.
I'm not crazy. My mother had me tested.
It's not uncommon for a shape or object to inspire an idea, a design, or even a character. Creative people are resourceful like that, and Jim Henson was one of the most creative minds who ever lived.
Creativity is a function of intelligence. And do you know why? Because being creative is who you are. It's the thing that keeps you going.
Well, yeah, I guess it is.
So that's why I think this theory is pretty likely. And for those reasons, I think there's a chance that it could be true. So that's what I call the peg hook theory. Now let's see what our Muppet experts think of this idea.
That's a damn good theory. I'm with you, honestly, because when you consider how resourceful Jim was, and you consider how unorthodox he was willing to be just to see what would happen, everything about that makes a lot of sense to me. And also, it's so simple. It's as simple as, oh, that's a nice shape. Let me just try and see what happens. And then it sticks. You know, that I 100% would believe that. That's a compelling theory.
What a wild idea.
Incredible. This is incredible. This is incredible. Are you serious? This is what you're thinking. Oh my God. Let's call the CIA, the FBI, and the Pentagon. You just gave me like a 35-point like crazy person PowerPoint slide about this thing.
Well done, Professor Krutinger. I see it. I truly, truly do. That's really interesting. Yeah, why not?
And there you have it.
That is a fascinating theory. I'm sure it's 100% wrong.
You know, it's amazing. You are 100% wrong. I mean, nothing you've said has been right.
I mean, it's sure. I mean, great. Maybe you're right. I'm not saying that that there's no possibility, but also like it's a circle with a line through it. Like I don't think it takes a ton of inspiration to get to that point. Kermit is really just a sock. Jim was probably looking at this thing and saying, this is a really expressive character. I could do a lot with him. I need to add one thing that just kind of makes him stand out a little bit more than any other character that someone could just make on their own. And so we can paint on the eyes. So boom, line through the eye. That would be my guess. I mean, looking at this, your beautiful presentation here, I don't know. I mean, I hope you're right just because it's a fun story, but at the same time, like, I think he just like picking the name Muppet. It's like, I don't know, it looked cool, so I did it. Done. I feel like the only person who would know for sure was Jim Henson.
Hold on, there must be some mistake.
So we have some mixed opinions, but that's okay. It's what makes this a fun conversation. Though I still think this lines up and makes too much sense not to be true. But I would love to hear what you think too.
How do you think my eyes got this way?
Do you agree with the peg hook theory? Or do you have your own theory? Where else does this shape exist in the world? If you have any ideas, I'd love to hear it. Comment below. And if you want to hear the extended conversation with our Muppet experts, make sure to click on the link above. They were really fun chats with many more interesting points. Be sure to check out their channels and content too. And if you enjoy this video, please hit the like button. It really helps the channel a lot more than you may think. Also, be sure to subscribe for more puppetry related videos. We have weekly puppetry videos on performing, making puppets, fun challenges, and even our own podcast called Puppeteers. There we've talked to many of the Muppet performers, as well as other passionate artists who do other styles of puppetry. I think you'll really enjoy it. And to find all the latest puppetry news, make sure to check out puppetnerd.com. Anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you next time.